Several years ago, I was a volunteer with the Nature Conservancy in Mount Laojun in Yunnan, China. Mount Laojun is the only remaining habitat of the Yunnan snub-nosed monkeys, which are highly endangered. During my time volunteering with the Nature Conservancy, I hiked with a local expedition team to set up cameras in the mountain for tracking the monkeys. This hike wound up being full of surprises. I drank water directly from the mountain stream and didn't have diarrhea. I tried a snub-nosed monkey daily vegetarian diet, a plant called usnea, and I actually really liked how it tasted. Most importantly, I was out-hiked by the leader of the expedition team, a 70-year-old man, who besides possessing incredible stamina, also has an incredible story about how he became a conservationist. This man's name was Zhiming Zhang. He was a hunter back in the 70s and started hunting at age 16. At that time, Yunnan's economy was very weak, and the locals still used hunting and gathering to sustain themselves. Out of necessity, the hunters in Mount Laojun started hunting the Yunnan snub-nosed monkeys for food. By the 80s, the population of the Yunnan snub-nosed monkey had dwindled to less than 100. Walking through the dense forest, Zhiming told me that he had actively participated in this extermination, but not happily. Every time when he happened to see the eyes of a baby snub-nosed monkey after he killed its mother, he instantly felt deep regret. Around this time, the Chinese government invited the Nature Conservancy to come to Yunnan in hopes that it could save the snub-nosed monkeys. Struck with sudden enlightenment and great courage, the 27-year-old Zhiming put down his rifle, joined the Nature Conservancy as a wildlife guide, and started persuading others to join the fight. Zhiming became the first person in his community to stand up and advocate for protecting what other people saw as prey. One of the challenges he encountered is that the new term conservation was hardly accepted or understood by the local people. Hunting was the only way for them to feed themselves. Therefore, they have no sympathy toward a movement insisting they stop. After months of struggle, Zhiming and the Nature Conservancy decided to bring a whole new concept, community-based conservation, to Mount Laojun community to tackle the problem of human indifference, which turned out to be really successful. I tell you this story because in working with Zhiming and the Nature Conservancy, I learned for the first time what community-based conservation is. Community-based conservation means educating the community to cultivate 4 different values: awareness, willingness, ability, and responsibility. Awareness means knowing the value of one's land. Willingness means wanting to change behavior. Ability describes having access to specific ways to create this change. And responsibility indicates concerns for the community and for its future generations. These 4 elements make community-based conservation different from some large-scale environmental organizations which have historically treated human beings as a disruptive factor to the environment. Instead, community-based conservation recognizes human beings as part of the ecosystem. The object of protection is no longer solely nature, but the social system, the community that evolved within it. Community-based conservation doesn't want to eliminate human interference with nature. Instead, it emphasizes the importance of human beings living in and sustainably developing with nature. Additionally, in community-based conservation, conservators are not outsiders who serve big environmental orgs, but are members of the local community who can use their awareness, willingness, ability, and responsibility to protect their own environment. In the 1980s, Zhiming and the Nature Conservancy applied community-based conservation principles to Mount Laojun community by encouraging the local economic development and by creating an economic alternative to hunting the snub-nosed monkeys. They initiated and hired a well-paid expedition team which would go on weekly routines around the mountain to eliminate traps and prevent other people from hunting. With a salary more profitable than hunting itself, many hunters put down their guns and joined the team. As time went on, the members of the local expedition team felt more and more bonded to their land. With dwindling hunter numbers and fewer traps, the population of the Yunnan snub-nosed monkeys increased from less than 100 to more than 250 after a few years. Realizing their impact, these former hunters were very proud, saying that their efforts were worth it because they had maintained this precious forest for their future generations. By the time I arrived in 2015 to volunteer for the Nature Conservancy, the organization had further encouraged local economic development by not only offering these well-paid jobs for former hunters, but also by helping the local artisans to sell their handicrafts through a sheer brand that appropriately has a snub-nosed monkey as its logo. After witnessing local people and their environment mutually benefit from community-based conservation, I wanted to put similar ideas into practice at my school in Shenzhen. Although there were no endangered monkeys at my school, we did have a littering problem. Plastic bottles were either left carelessly on the ground or dumped in normal trash. I hoped to design something that could effectively collect these bottles and improve our community. My peers and I collaborated with Shenzhen Green Development Foundation and Income Recycling Company to design the recycling machine. The recycling machine allows people to get rebates for their phone bills after inserting an empty plastic bottles. These plastic bottles will then be transferred to a factory to be recycled and reused. We were so excited to see how our community would react to it. And yet, the day our recycling machine was put into our school, it was completely ignored. People only passed by and glanced at it, and that's all. We collected nothing but 10 plastic bottles for a school of 1,500 students on our very first day. I thought that creating a convenient and economically sound incentive would encourage people to engage, but I was wrong. These first few days with the failed recycling machines made me realize that the most serious environmental issue is not climate change or the loss of biodiversity, but human indifference. Indifference comes from the misalignment of the 4 elements of community-based conservation: awareness, willingness, ability, and responsibility. Missing any one of them will lead to people assuming that others will act for us, which eventually prevent people from doing goods for the community. This attitude is even more powerful than our ability to think about the future. People do not seem to understand that their actions do have an impact. They no longer realize that recycling 1 plastic bottle can reduce 75 grams of carbon dioxide emissions. And if every student at Shenzhen Foreign Languages School can recycle 1 plastic bottle instead of trashing it, we can reduce 112.5 kilograms of carbon dioxide emission. The failure of our recycling machine gave birth to a much larger project of helping to adjust our schoolmates' attitude toward their environment and toward eco-social justice. My environmental club members and I invited professors from Yale to give monthly talk at our school about the impact of our daily carbon emission. We also collaborated with an international environmental organization, 350.org, and built our own online platform, 350shenzhen.org, through which students can calculate their own carbon emissions. Our community was given the ability to protect its environment through an easy method, the recycling machine. We encourage people to act by telling them how much difference they can make with their individual actions, giving them a reason that their actions are valuable. As more and more students started to feel responsible for their environment, we began to see more plastic bottles in the recycling machine and less on the ground or in the normal trash. Currently, Shenzhen Foreign Languages School is recycling 26,000 plastic bottles annually, saving 3.9 tons of petroleum, reducing 1.95 tons of carbon dioxide emission, which is equal to planting 26 trees every year. We also know that the students are more environmentally aware because there are 40% more students taking public transportation to school, approximately reducing 1,029 kilograms of carbon dioxide emissions every single day. This is the concrete impact of community-based conservation. And it requires making people aware of how much their individual actions can make a tangible difference. At times, people have thought that the environment is only a scientific problem and have turned to research and technology to try to find ways to solve it. But now it is clear that the real problem is a more complex, human-oriented social issue. What community-based conservation shows us is how to combat indifference by thinking and providing the 4 elements that are needed to create actions: awareness, willingness, ability, and responsibility. It's much easier to align these 4 elements at the local community level. Community-based conservation allows one community to become an example for the others, and eventually allows them to dream what they might be as well. You just saw the influence of one recycling machine. Now imagine what recycling machines can do if they're put in 100 or 1,000 places, which they already are. With a focus on local and intimate community, community-based conservation has the ability to immediately and collectively improve the world around you, one community at a time. It is the first step toward tackling worldwide environmental issues. In order to achieve this, we must form a cross-regional support network and promote communications between different communities to share successful methods for conservation and sustainability that have concrete results. Eventually, every citizen of the global village will be facing the challenge of conservation together, but acting in a local and tangible manner. So to everyone in this room, I want you to leave Concord Carlisle today with a resolution to bring community-based conservation to your own community. Now that you know that this is a great way to solve ecological issues, try to determine a specific environmental problem that your community is facing. It might be as simple as not taking public transportation or wasting too much water. And then think about, of the 4 elements, what does your community have and what does it need? Are they aware of the impact of their individual actions? Are they willing to make changes? Do they have access to do specific environment activities? And do they feel responsible toward the lands where they're dwelling? Ask these questions to your community, and they will help you find an answer. You'll be surprised at what you can accomplish collectively. Thank you.